Hello Internet friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lindsay, LiJo, and today we're going to be talking about unhealthy INTJs, or INTJs who have imbalance within their cognitive functions. We're going to get right into it. If you are an INTJ struggling with your own internal world and health within your cognitive functions, I do have a link down below for Snug if you'd like to book time with me or any other type as well. You're welcome to. So starting off, let's get into it. So as an INTJ, you're going to be more dismissive of your FI and your SE if you have the normal cognitive function stack of a non-jumper INTJ. You have NI and TE as the saviors, FI and SE as the demons. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to bring attention to is getting stuck in simulation land. Now, this is something that I'll continue to do, but I've really been able to control this more as I've gotten older. What happens is you will be in some sort of situation in life and you will start simulating something that could happen based on integrations that exist around you. And you project this simulation of how something could play out or occur. You play this game with your own brain of how would I figure this out if this were to be the case. And I remember just spending hours and hours when I was a kid running these simulations over and over again, trying to figure things out, figure this out. Oh, if this happened, then I could do this, and then this would happen, and then I could probably do this thing and this thing. And just like, I had no control over it in that point. It was just my savior functions kind of just running their course and doing whatever they wanted to do. And that kind of leads me into my next point, which is an unhealthy INTJ will spend a lot of their time solving and not very much of their time actually doing. Now, this is something that is deeply ingrained in us because our SE function is last, that is the doing, the gathering function, and the NT, it just wants to figure it out, it just wants to solve. So when it comes to life issues, when it comes to things that need solving, gosh, do I love a good conceptual puzzle to solve. Not a literal puzzle. I want to solve the how and the why behind something so that it could produce a certain kind of result. So unhealthy INTJs are going to want to solve, that is what we want to do, but actually actioning things in reality, you're not really going to see that from them as much. All right, the next thing you're going to see from an unhealthy INTJ is being out of touch with reality. And again, this is related to extroverted sensing, our fourth function. We are more out of touch with what is currently happening in the here and now versus the simulation within our own brains. So a lot of times we'll go through life doing our NT thing and then realize a lot later in the stages of the game that, wow, other humans have been doing this thing for a long time and I'm just realizing it now. I still remember having the revelation when I was in 8th grade that the girl who always had the locker next to me, one day I saw that every day she like did her hair nicely. She put like little clips in it and she wore like outfits that matched together. And all of a sudden I had this revelation that people put effort into their appearance. And I was in 8th grade and I just remember being like, does everyone do this? Like, have I not known this like this entire time? And I remember looking around me in middle school and being like, oh my gosh, people actually spend time and effort in this thing. Now, okay, that's one example, but magnify that concept, right? We will so often miss out on the sensory things that we're always kind of coming to them in a later stage in the game. So how does that hurt us as an INTJ, right? It means we're going to generally be out of touch as it relates to trends and relevant information to a culture. And this one is still hard for me because as much as I know, I NT know that it's important to know and understand these things and to leverage them, it takes so much effort for me to actually care and actually gather in the data because I care so little about it internally. That it's still a challenge to this day, and I have to like force myself in different areas to be like, okay, this is relevant, you need to keep your eye on this here, this is relevant over here, you need to keep your eye on this, because the thing is, if you want to achieve the NT goal, the NT dream, a lot of times it has to integrate with things that are culturally relevant, and we have to know that that is a shortcoming of ours that needs attention at some point. Now, another area where we can see this out of touch with reality spectrum is as it relates to our lives, our physical bodies, and the things that we do for our own physical self-care in reality. Now, as an INTJ, because we are so good at ignoring the sensory, it means many times we will push our physical boundaries and limits into places that they should not end up, because it is so easy for us to look past the sensory and just focus on the end point of whatever our objective is. Now, in general, I try to be pretty healthy. I try to exercise almost daily. My diet of food is pretty predictable, relatively healthy. And the thing is I do those things because I know if I have a system for eating, doing some kind of exercise, that inevitably I'm going to have about 20 to 30% of my time where I fall back into my NT unhealth as it relates to the sensory and just completely void the system just because I can, just because I'm caught up in something that I'm working on, that I don't stand up for 8 hours, I don't eat anything, I don't drink any water. Basic human function needs that I just completely dismiss for sometimes hours, days on end. And so I know, as someone who's trying to be more balanced, that if I have systems in place to make me do certain sensory things, that it will help for the times that I'm inevitably going to leave and go on the NT crazy train, and I have to plan for the fact that that is going to happen every so often. So I treat myself relatively well 80% of the time so that I can absolutely treat myself like crap for, 20% of the time, which inevitably will happen at some point. All right, so the next thing you may notice with an unhealthy INTJ is relatively bad emotional intelligence. Now, realizing that I was failing in emotional intelligence was actually the thing that brought me to the typology community, brought me to trying to figure out things about my own type, because I saw a void and I was set on figuring it out and fixing it. So this one isn't as SE related. So the reason why an INTJ may show a lack of emotional intelligence is because we aren't regularly tapping into our own emotions. Now, our FI function, it's third, it's not last, but in general, we will tend to look at a situation and rationalize whether or not our emotions come into play in a situation. And because a lot of times they don't, we will kind of throw them to the side and not validate them for ourselves. So what does that do? Well, it means that when someone else is going through an emotional experience of sorts, that we'll do the same thing. We'll kind of dismiss it because that's what we do to ourselves. And a lot of times what we do to ourselves is what we end up doing to other people. It wouldn't be relevant for me to feel sad in this situation, so why is this other person so upset? This is stupid. Get it together so we can move forward, right? Not the best emotional intelligence, but it's something that can be worked on and improved. Like, yeah, I do feel things. I do have, things I feel strongly about that make me upset, that I do have those things often, but I will many times dismiss them for the NT goal. And the last thing I'm going to mention as it relates to being an unhealthy INTJ, because you know what, balance, that is number one here, that's what we're after, people, is failing to maintain relationships, whether that be professional or social, because of the fact that FI and SE are both required in that process. And I have a few close friends, a very few, but I have a few close friends and I love them. They are amazing people. I'm grateful to know them. But where do I really suck? And this is something I would say out of everything right now that I am still probably in the thickest mud with, is maintaining relationships with people who I actually care about, but that the relationship, it requires time and effort and upkeep and just an occasional check-in. I'm not even talking about oh, I'm calling this person once a week. I mean, I'm talking about I'm checking in with them every 2 or 3 months. And this is what I consider to be one of my closest friends, right? So that's not good in terms of nurturing a relationship. And that's kind of upsetting because like I said, I love the people who are close to me. I would do many things for them if they needed it. But in general, when things are okay, you're working on your thing, they're doing their thing, I'm not going to be the first person to reach out, to pick up the phone and call, to text them, to do anything really. And the same thing goes for professional relationships. You know, the act of going out and networking and staying in touch with people, man, there are some types that are just so good at that, especially those people with extroverted feeling. They're naturals, they just do it so well. One of my first bosses, when I was like a big kid with like a real job, like my first like real job, was an INTJ. And that relationship with me and him worked so well because I could do all the behind the scenes stuff. I could solve things like I was really good at. I could like put together the whole map of how it would work with different team members and whatever, and who would have to be responsible for what, and how all this stuff would come together and play. And then he could take that plan, that strategy, and then he would go and do the song and the dance and the hype routine to the team members to be like, this is what we're gonna do, this is how we're gonna do it. And I could just sit back and not have to do any of it. And that was amazing. That was such a great experience. You know, I was living in my saviors, life was good. I didn't have to talk to anybody. I just had to hand over the thing that was gonna work and let it go work. Because at the end of the day, it's like, I can talk pretty well, I can communicate pretty well, but that's when I'm just communicating outward and I'm letting those words go like I'm doing right now. There's no one in front of me that I'm speaking with. I'm just throwing out the words. I'm throwing out the projection. I'm throwing out the plan, right? And I'm throwing it to the tribe, and nothing right now is coming back to me. This dialogue stops here. So yeah, SE and FI, what is relevant to the self and others in reality is our greatest struggle. And so continuing to tap into that, checking yourself and saying, you know, am I utilizing these functions in this situation? Am I utilizing these things on a more regular basis to elevate my lower functions up to a higher level? And at the end of the day, it's pretty simple. If you take responsibility for your lower functions or the functions that you don't have and try to simulate them, you are going to be able to navigate life in a better, more precise manner because you are having access to tools that will actually allow you to do things, make change and results in various areas versus just being able to do a few things really well and sucking on the other end. So to all the INTJs out there who are maybe a little bit over dominant in your N and your T, I ask you, do the things that you suck at, because doing that will actually help support your NT goal down the line, because the master plan is going to require the use of your full brain. So that's what you should do. All right, guys, that's the end of this video. I'll see you in my next one. If you'd like to book time, link is down below. And have a wonderful morning or evening or whatever time you see this. Okay, bye. I really don't want to like talk right now. So I don't know. I mean, I don't want to like get up. I just got all my equipment set up. I got like everything ready to go.
Well, Mateo understand.
Okay, is he gonna like be here for a second and leave, or is he?
I don't know. I'll tell him.
I don't have to do any back and forth. I don't have to energetically. Okay, we're done with this for now.